Down. It is week number 8 in the Canadian Football League. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Back with me this week is Andrew McGinnis. He's back from the cottage. I'm sure he had a fun time last weekend up north and ready to get back at it here in the saddle, ready for week 8 action. Best bets, just to update that before we get into week 8, we're looking at 7-7 on the season. We're trying to get above 500 finally. Hopefully this is the week we can do that. We got a regular slate, 4 games on tap. There's that 1 week we had 3 games. That was about it, but we're back to a regular week 8 schedule with 4 games on tap, including a doubleheader on Thursday night, and that's where we're going to start off with this show. Ottawa taking on Toronto Thursday night to kick off week 8 action. Currently, we've got Ottawa a 5-point road favorite in this game. The total bouncing around in that 48.5 range. Remember to use SBRodds.com for the best numbers available to make sure you get the best side or total number on each CFL game this week. And the big news here is, what can Mark Trestman do to try to jumpstart what has been a sputtering, scuffling, and struggling Toronto Argonaut offense? And without a doubt, that's been a problem for them. They've now dropped 3 straight football games, and it's really been because of an offense that's completely been lack of big plays, a lack of an offensive line that has been able to adequately protect for the quarterback, or even open up holes for the ground game consistently. I mean, I thought James Wilder Jr. would make a bigger impact than he has, but unfortunately, I don't think it's what he's not doing. I think it's what the offensive line is not doing for Toronto. There's just no run lanes. You got to have good blocking. Every good running back has good blockers and good O-linemen in front of them to clear that pathway for the ground attack. James Wilder Jr. is not getting that right now from this Toronto offensive line, which has just been a complete disaster, really, for the majority of the season. Now, Mark Trestman knows probably that that's a big issue, but he's still not going to lay all the blame at the O-line. He's obviously talked about James Franklin having to be better. We've seen him miss some opportunities. I remember the Winnipeg game last Friday night. There were some plays to be made, and I've noticed there was a wide open receiver. This was a key turning point in the game. Third quarter, they had a chance still, maybe Toronto, to make the game interesting. James Franklin has a wide open receiver going to the end zone, just underthrows it. So the receiver's got to stop there and wait for the football. That allows the DB time to recover, get in position, intercept the pass. Just little things like that. We're not seeing James Franklin have that timing in the passing game yet for this Toronto team, and it's been a problem as well. So even when he has, received time to throw the football, he's had those issues where he's underthrown the football just a little bit. And just not been accurate with it. So Trestman making the decision that he's going to make this quarterback change this week and put in McLeod Bethel Thompson, who's going to be your starting quarterback for the Argos. And if you have been a bettor for a long time in football, particularly NFL preseason football, you'll remember having wagers for many teams over the years with McLeod Bethel Thompson coming into the game in the third quarter and fourth quarter, and you'd be a little worried when he came into the game. You'd be worried that he's going to throw an interception and cost you the cover. Because oftentimes that's what would happen with him when he was suiting up in the NFL preseason. Now, all we have to see from Bethel Thompson so far in a CFL playing role was in the preseason. He got a start against my own Ticats, actually, and he played pretty well in that game. I remember it. It was the first preseason game, our only home preseason game that the Ticats had. He played a pretty good football game, but that was preseason. You're not dealing with starting defenses. Let's see what he can do now. The bright lights, first regular season start now for the Argos, if he can handle it. On the other side, you got an Ottawa team that really won last weekend against Hamilton 21-15 because their defense was good. And their field goal kicker, Lewis Ward, was outstanding. He did all the scoring for Ottawa. Ottawa somehow, that's what was frustrating about that game from a Ticats perspective. Ottawa doesn't score a touchdown and they still beat you. That's a very frustrating loss if you're the Hamilton Ticats last week. But, Ottawa's defense got it done. Trevor Harris talked about, we didn't make mistakes, no turnovers. That was the good thing. But you got to improve our red zone efficiency. That clearly wasn't good enough last week. Had to settle for field goals on and on throughout the football game. We'll see if they can improve on that here. This total's very low for a reason. You've got Ottawa's offense been very inconsistent. Toronto's offense has been horrible, largely because of their offensive line, although it can't be any worse from the quarterback standpoint with Bethel Thompson there. because Franklin, to me, unfortunately, I had high hopes for the guy. He just didn't really put it all together. Maybe he will in time, but maybe he just needs this time to take a break, maybe see how things are run on this offense from a different perspective with a different quarterback under center. Kind of lean to the over. It's a low total. I think Ottawa's really worked on this red zone attack of theirs this week in practice. They know they got to get better at it. Can Toronto's offense be really any worse? I know one thing. Toronto's defense, you should say this is a low total with Toronto's offense involved. You could also look at it on the flip side. It's a low total with Toronto's defense involved. Toronto's defense got shredded last week by Winnipeg. Couldn't stop them. They couldn't really stop or slow down Matt Nichols at all in that football game. They're banged up beyond belief on that side of the ball, and really they're not getting any of these guys back anytime soon. Bear Woods is not coming back at linebacker until August at some point. You could say the same thing about Taylor Reed. You could say the same thing about Matt Black, one of their better cornerbacks in the secondary. They're still a banged up group on that defensive side of the football. So lean into this game over the total. Ottawa -5 is, it's probably the only way I could go from a side standpoint, but, I want to see Ottawa really improve the red zone offense. And if nothing else, this is a tricky spot for Ottawa too. You played on the road in Hamilton Saturday, then you went back to Ottawa actually after that game. You didn't stay in the QEW Golden Horseshoe area. They actually went home to Ottawa, and now they're coming back to Toronto for a Saturday to Thursday turnaround, which is not an easy turnaround with travel back to Ottawa in between. So the spot's a little dubious here. Dubious enough where I'm not going to be interested in laying the 5 here with Ottawa, even though I'm not sure I'm ready to trust McLeod Bethel-Thompson in a makeshift offensive line in his first start just yet. So we'll go maybe with a lean toward the over. I'm sure I'll have some kind of bet on that. Not one of my stronger plays, but we'll have some kind of small play over 48 here with this game Thursday night. Let's get to Andrew with Ottawa and Toronto. Your thoughts on the Red, Blacks, and Argos. Andrew, what do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to say what I've been saying about this Toronto Argonauts team. And the fact of this Argos team, Ian, is that, once Ricky Ray went down, it was all downhill for me. I mean, I really think that this is the team where they're in QB. They need some QBs right now. I mean, it's not going to get better anytime soon. We saw an interview with James Franklin about his smile, how he's always smiling. I'll tell you, he definitely wasn't smiling in that game. I mean, he was not on par at all. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers just marched all over them. And I think that continues. I mean, we got another quarterback coming in. Like you said, it's just been passed around. This is a quarterback that's been passed around. And I think that once again, this Argonauts team is going to get beat down. I think even though it's 5.5 points, it's a lot of points to lay for this Ottawa team. Like you said, did not play in too much of a back and forth game. Not a touchdown for them. But I think they have too many weapons. I think this Argos team is too weak. I'd honestly be more comfortable, Ian, laying the points than the over in this game personally, just because I don't really know what the Argos are going to give me. Maybe even a more favorable bet would be on Ottawa in the first half. I don't think that the Argos come out strong at all. And to be honest, Ian, like you said, Mark Trestman, I mean, they're not really taking as many risks as they should. I haven't seen too many long balls thrown. I haven't seen too many trick plays. It's been all very basic, first down to first down kind of football. And I think that, with the lack of James Wilder's production, he's not really doing too great for them. I think they have to go make some risks. I mean, they got some talented wide receivers. I haven't seen Green get involved as much as I'd like to. So I'll lay the points with Ottawa this week. I think this is the week they really step it up.
All right, going to lay the points. That's the only way I could go. That's for sure. Toronto, I got to see something positive. You got a new quarterback in there, never started in a regular season game, never started in a meaningful CFL regular season game. Okay, a preseason game, but that doesn't count. And you're not playing starting first string number one defenses in the preseason. Now you will be. Let's see what they could do. And it's not like that Ottawa defense played horribly last week. No, they played excellent against Hamilton, shutting down the Ticats. So, yeah, we're going to have to see if McLeod Bethel-Thompson and an offensive line that has struggled in pass protection and run blocking so far can get it done. I'm going to have to see it before I can believe it. Let's go to Saskatchewan, Edmonton. Next game on Thursday, the second game of the doubleheader that night. We've got Edmonton laying about 8-9 points, depending on where it's really 8 in most spots. There's one rogue 9 that's sitting out there at the Greek right now. The total 52.5, 53 here, pretty much across the board in this game. Here's Edmonton off a tremendous performance last week against Montreal, but how much stock does anybody put any win against the Montreal Alouettes at this point? That was a weird week for the Montreal Alouettes where, Johnny Manziel gets traded, 3 or 4 days before they play Edmonton in that game. There was all that talk and debate throughout the week. Is he going to play? Is he going to start? And if he doesn't start, is he going to actually even get some snaps? It was looking like he was going to get some snaps early in the week. Sure enough, the game comes along, and Vernon Adams Jr. plays all 4 quarters, and we don't see Johnny Manziel at all, who, as we're about to talk about later in the show, has been saved for Friday night against Hamilton to make his debut. So, Edmonton or Montreal had all that to deal with when they played Edmonton last week. And you could tell they were discombobulated. There was probably just, not a lot of, a weird week of prep and practice and game plan with all the Johnny Manziel stuff floating around. And it kind of showed up. They got off to a good start. I think maybe they took Edmonton by surprise. But once that second quarter rolled around, Edmonton woke up from their early slumber and really took over that game on both sides and ended up running away with a convincing win against the Montreal Alouettes last week. But now we've got Edmonton back in this role, Andrew, here, where they're hard to trust. I mean, home favorite role has been a very, very difficult one for the Edmonton Eskimos. They're just 5-12 ATS their last 17 home games. That's not anything to write home about by any stretch. They've struggled to cover numbers basically here on their home field. And that's definitely something that concerns me in this kind of price range here against a Saskatchewan defense that, don't be fooled by 34 points last week that Calgary scored. All right. Calgary put up less than 250 total yards in that football game last week. What gave Calgary all those points early in the game? Turnovers, the punt return touchdown. They consistently start fumbles by Saskatchewan, which set Calgary up in great Riders territory with those drives. It's not like Calgary marched the ball up and down the field against Saskatchewan last week. They capitalized on those early turnovers and scored off those. I thought Saskatchewan's defense still did a pretty decent job. They got pressure on Mitchell, a couple of sacks from the former Stampeder, Charleston Hughes in that game for Saskatchewan. So their defense now has played very, very good in 4 of the 6 games this season, including 3 straight. Played great 2 weeks in a row against Hamilton. And it's going to show 34 points beside Calgary in that win last week. But they played good. That's one of those times you're going to see 34 points for the other team. They played good because Calgary got that ball in the 20, 30-yard line of Saskatchewan early in that game off all those turnovers. And again, Saskatchewan giving up less than 250 yards. That's not supposed to equate to 34 points. It was turnovers. It was the defensive score. It was the special team score that made that Saskatchewan performance defensively look much worse than it really was. So this is going to be interesting. You've got that Saskatchewan defense playing very well against an Edmonton offense that's got all those weapons with, Darrell Walker and Kenny Stafford. It's a loaded receiving core. Duke Williams, of course, has been outstanding for them as well. It's a great receiving core. It's a great matchup of the outstanding Eskimo offense against the peaking at the right time Riders defense here in this game. I'm actually leaning Saskatchewan here, plus the points. This has been a terrible point spread role for the Edmonton Eskimos. It really has been. This is not a team that's covered big numbers routinely at home. The only time they really did was against BC in a bounce back spot when they had lost the week before. Now you're coming off the big win against Montreal on the road, back home now. When you've been very, very shaky covering big numbers like this on your home field. And let's be honest, the Edmonton defense is still a very big concern for me. Montreal moved the ball in big chunks against them for portions of that game last week. Penalties were still an issue for that Edmonton defense. Face mask penalties, pass interference penalties, like PI has really been a concern for Edmonton. I think there can't be a team that's taken more defensive pass interference penalties so far in the CFL than Edmonton. They've taken a ton of them. That could be an issue here. I know Bridge, he didn't exactly keep it up at a strong level from that second half he had against Hamilton. He had a sort of a plodding effort last week, but that's a Calgary defense that we've lauded all season. They're excellent. I think he's going to be able to make some plays, do enough, Brandon Bridge, at the quarterback spot to keep Saskatchewan competitive. I'm going to take the points here with Saskatchewan. And it looks like finally Chris Jones is going to come to his senses and put Duron Carter full-time on offense starting this week at wide receiver. It looks like all of this stuff with him playing defense might finally, hopefully, for the love of God, be over, and we can get this guy playing the position he's most comfortable in and the position he's won awards in the past, receiver of the year in the CFL, I think either last year or the year before. Yeah, not defensive lineman of the year, not defensive back of the year, not center of the year, not kicker of the year, wide receiver of the year. Let's get back to that for Duron Carter. Can we? Please. I'm begging you, Chris Jones. Do it. So for me, Saskatchewan plus the points here. Andrew, Saskatchewan, Edmonton, Friday night. What do you like here from a betting standpoint?
Yeah, Ian, it sounds like you're ready for Jerome Carter to go back to offense, and I'm ready for
More than
just
ready.
a decision made. I mean, for them to finally just say it's official. That's all he's playing is offense. I mean, he doesn't belong playing defense. He was athletic. He made some plays, got some INTs, but that's not where he belongs. He belongs in offense. He's way too talented, like you said, a receiver of the year in one of the years. He's just too great of a wideout for the CFL for him to be on defense in my eyes. And yeah, looking at this game, I actually do agree with you, Ian. I will say one thing about Edmonton though. If you're interested in live betting at all or checking out the CFL as far as live betting goes or second half plays, I will continue to say it, Ian, on our show. And it's kind of a weird take, but this team has slow starts, and they do have slow starts. I mean, I'd love to see what a stat is for opposing teams covering the spread in the first half. I mean, this team without Mike Riley being so talented to be able to kind of pick them up, their defense gets walked all over in the first half of most games. They take a lot of uncalled for, a lot of unnecessary penalties, and it really catches up to them, which causes the total to go over a lot. I think more often than not, their opposition goes over their team total, and that Edmonton can still win by a decent margin because they step it up so much in the second half. I mean, I agree with you. Heading back home to Edmonton with this, I think Saskatchewan's defense did step it up. Like you said, I mean, I was on Calgary, Ian. I was happy with the performance. But realistically, all the right things that could have gone right for Calgary did in that game. I think we can all say, that first half, that you can't really ask for a better first quarter than that, Ian, that Calgary had. So realistically, heading into this game, I don't think Edmonton gets the win. I would look at maybe even teasing the under in Saskatchewan. I think that Edmonton has to work on their defense. Saskatchewan, if they have any chance, they'll probably play some lockdown defense. But yeah, I think Saskatchewan covers the points, Ian.
Yeah, I think it's just a few too many points with a quality defense, and a quality defense now that's played well. You just hope Brandon Bridge doesn't make those critical errors and those critical mistakes. And ball security's got to be a focal point for Saskatchewan. They definitely could have won that football game. They played toe to toe with Calgary. You take away the turnovers, you take away the punt return touchdown they gave up. They played toe to toe with Calgary in that football game last week, even though it won't look that way on the final score. So again, ball security is going to be pivotal for Saskatchewan. They don't have all those turnovers. They're right in that game and maybe even have a chance to win it.
Yeah, and Saskatchewan used to be an exciting team. You remember last year? I mean, they would be, you'd see highlights of like 60, 70-yard bombs thrown. All of a sudden, of course, with Colaros getting injured, of course, it sucks. But I mean, we got to see them take some chances. We got to see them throw the ball. We got to see them take some risks and try and exploit this Edmonton defense. Like you mentioned, they get penalties left and right. They're a very undisciplined team. I mean, we saw it. Mike Riley had the interview, and the reporter asked, are you guys done with these penalties? I mean, I thought you guys were done with them. And Mike Riley said, look, I thought we handled the situation. We're very undisciplined. And, it's not going to – no team's going to be successful, Ian, if they're giving up that many penalties and their defense is getting walked over like that. I mean, you've got a pretty much most outstanding player in the league, quarterback on your team, and yet your defense lets you down every single week. So, the Saskatchewan team should be able to cover these points if they get their offense rolling.
Yeah, definitely. And Chris Lomas, Football Observer, he's an astute football bettor in the chat, saying that, Jerome Messam getting cut this week over off the field issues, not a big deal. I agree, actually. Messam was not making a big impact this year. Trey Mason looked like a former Auburn Tiger running back, looked like he was ready to take over that spot, number one back for this Saskatchewan team. And I think that's now obviously going to happen. I think he's been okay, and I think he's going to get better now. I think Trey Mason might actually be a very good fit for CFL offense at the running back spot with this Saskatchewan team and be able to give Brandon Bridge that balance on offense that I think he needs. So, yeah, I mean, you get a team that's playing the kind of defense Saskatchewan has now for 3 straight games. These are a lot of points to be given a defense playing this way. So, we're both liking Saskatchewan here a little bit, plus the 8 against Edmonton, a team that's been an absolutely downright miserable home favorite. Again, I mean, that home ATS record is just absolutely dreadful for the Edmonton Eskimos. 7-15 against this. If you want to go even longer term than what I gave you out before, 7-15 against the spread for Edmonton, their last 22 home games at Commonwealth Stadium. So, yeah, not the kind of team, especially with the defensive breakdowns at times, pass interference, penalties, undisciplined play continued last week. They're lucky that they played a team as bad as Montreal. It didn't show up because of it. But it will show up against better teams. And if they have those penalty issues, again, discipline that Jason Moss keeps talking about, we got to fix it, and it never gets fixed. Well, if you don't fix it this week, you may be walking out of your home building again with a loss. So it'll be interesting to see if Saskatchewan or Edmonton can do a better job. Just don't hold. Don't grab a receiver down the field. Don't jump a false start or illegal procedure all the time, which has killed this team too. Just stupid penalties have killed this Edmonton team week in and week out this season. We'll see if they can eventually correct it, because really they haven't. They've addressed it week after week. We got to fix it, and nothing's getting fixed. So it's up to them to show me at this point that they can play with much better discipline than they have. Let's get to Friday. There's only one game on Friday night, but it's the game everybody's talking about. We all know why. Hamilton Ticats, Montreal Alouettes. We're going to be sick of talking about Johnny Manziel's debut, I'm sure, by the time this game kicks off. I already am. Hamilton laying 6.5. The total 49.5, 50 in this game. Now, before we break down this game, it's time to get something off my chest here, because we've got a little civil war breaking out in my hometown here, and I don't like it. Not one goddamn bit right now with what's going on. I'm forced basically in the preseason to see people that I've never ever seen, and I've been in Ticats games, every home game for the last 6 years now. I'm forced now to see a bunch of people now in my section on a weekly basis up till now that I've never ever seen in my life. There's usually a bunch of people in my section where we sit. I recognize them. They're good, loyal fans. They're there for every game. Now I'm seeing people that all of a sudden, and most of them have Manziel jerseys on. They can't tell you the difference between Johnny Manziel and Johnny Adams, the former cornerback in the league. They couldn't tell you the difference. Can't name you 10 current CFL players on any roster, maybe not even the Ticats roster, but there they are. They're going to come out here in their Johnny Manziel jerseys all of a sudden, when I couldn't tell you them from Adam. They're going to come out to these football games. So I got to sit there in the games now and listen to these guys yelling, "Put Johnny in the game," every time Masoli's struggling. So now these people that claim to be Ticat fans, and they were claiming to be Ticat fans all along. We still love this team. I know we're big Manziel fans, but we love our Ticats too. I'm forced now to see a few of them. Not everybody. 90% of the people in my hometown right now are loyal Ticat fans. They stand by the team through all costs. I'm forced to see the few morons, the few idiots, the few losers out there that are only interested in the Hamilton Ticats when Johnny Manziel's on the roster, now chiming out, now that he's been named the starter of this game, that I'm going to cheer loudly for Johnny Manziel against the team that I live in, the team that I grew up in, the team that the city that I was raised in, and I'm going to cheer against that team now this week because Johnny Manziel's playing against them, and I'm a Johnny-come-lately fanboy. I'm a Johnny-come-lately idiot fanboy. I don't care about the CFL. I don't care about the Hamilton Ticats. Well, guess what? If you feel that way, you know what? I will gladly come down to your house, put a for sale sign up on your house, pack your shit, pack your bags. I tell you to get the fuck to Montreal, and you can go there and live there. Oui, parlez français, merci, and all that good stuff. Yeah, you can go there and cheer for Johnny Manziel, because we don't need your asses in this town. We need people that are going to roll up their sleeves and support the local team. We need people that are going to be loyal to the cause. We need people that are going to stand up for the black and gold, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. People look at the picture I took with Johnny Manziel at the SBR IFBC last year and think, oh boy, he must be the biggest Johnny Manziel fan. I am a loyal fuck. You can count on that. There is nothing that stands ahead of my team and my city. No player, no cause, no nothing. All right? So if you want to cheer for Johnny Manziel and be the moron and be the complete buffoon that is going to cheer for one player over the team that represents your city, you can get the fuck out. Seriously, you really can. I'll pack your bags for you. I'll pack your shit and say, don't ever come back. You better believe it. And by the way, for these people that say, I have a right to be upset, I have a right to be angry and to cheer for Johnny Manziel against the Ticats because he's a better quarterback than Jeremiah Masoli. Well, let's see. This is still a guy that hasn't played one meaningful snap in professional football since his career with the Cleveland Browns flamed out. Okay, so let's calm down. Let's see what he does. And all these people that say, too, oh, I'm cheering for Johnny Manziel, though, but I'm not being disloyal. Well, okay, let me put it this way to you. You're now, you claim to be a Ticats fan. I've never seen you before at a game until this season, but you claim to be a Ticats fan all your life. That's a good one. I've never seen you before. Now you're cheering for Manziel, and you hope now he beats your own hometown team this week. Let me tell you something. Most of these, not most of these, but a lot of these people, they're also Toronto Maple Leaf fans. So I'm going to put a little situation towards your minds, and you think about this loud and long and hard that I'm about to pose this little scenario out there to you. Okay, Johnny Manziel, apparently you love this guy more than your own team, gets traded to Montreal. Now you're going to cheer for Johnny and the Alouettes this Friday against your own team, your own city's team. Okay, what if the Toronto Maple Leafs, your favorite diehard hockey team, what if just all of a sudden, this is never going to happen, of course, next year they decide, Kyle Dubas is a young kid. Okay, he's feeling some pressure. Loses his damn mind. Loses his marbles. Maybe he deserves to be in an insane asylum for doing it. He decides, guess what? I think Austin Matthews is going to absolutely be a disaster here for this franchise. He's not going to be the superstar everyone thinks he's going to be. I'm going to trade him to the Montreal Canadiens. That's right, the Montreal Canadiens. What are you going to do as an and you're a big-time Austin Matthews fan? What are you going to do now? You, as a Leaf fan, claim to be one, you're going to cheer for Austin Matthews and the Montreal Canadiens over the Toronto Maple Leafs? That will never happen in a million years. It's hypocrisy is what it is. It's absolute blatant hypocrisy. Now, I got no time of day, none, zero, for anybody that thinks that from my hometown. None. And if you want to cheer for Johnny Manziel against other teams, when he plays BC, when he plays Edmonton, when he plays Calgary, when he plays Saskatchewan, go for it. In fact, I'm going to cheer for Johnny Manziel when he's playing those other teams, because I want to see him do well and succeed against those other teams. But when he's playing my Hamilton Ticats, fuck no. There's no way in a million years I would say, let's go, Johnny, beat my team, beat my city. No, never in a million years. And if you feel that way, get lost. That's all there is to it. We don't need you. All right. That's out of my system. Time to break down this game. I like the over in this game as we break it down here, because if you look at it, Hamilton's getting some pieces back on offense here for this football game. Terrence Tolliver and Luke Tasker, who you could arguably say are probably their two best receivers, Andrew. They're both going to be back this week. Their offensive line was horrible last week, and I think part of that is because they traded their starting left tackle in that Manziel trade. So they had some shuffling along that offensive line, but I think that unit has to be better. I think it's going to be better. Another week of practice. I think Hamilton's going to put up points here in this football game. Montreal, on the flip side, Manziel's got that ability still in him to make plays when the pocket collapses. I know we're going to see how real all of this chatter has been going back to when he was with Hamilton and now that he's with Montreal about, he's picking up the playbook quickly. He's learning how to, the rhythm with his teammates is coming to him very easily. He's fit in perfectly. He's picking up things very quickly. Let's see if all of that is going to come to fruition Friday night when he has to take the field for the very first time. But I will say this, the Montreal offense looked competent in portions of last week's game with Vernon Adams there. And I think they're going to be able to make some plays against Hamilton here in this game. And the Montreal defense, let's not forget, we talk about Hamilton's offensive line can't be worse. They're getting their top two receivers back. We also have to remember this Montreal defense is a disaster. It's horrible. And Edmonton moved the ball up and down the field at will against them. So I know Hamilton's offense has hit the skids big time these last 3 games. This has to be the get well week. This has to be the get right performance for Hamilton's offense, because this is the weakest defense by far, hands down, bar none, that they have faced so far. So for that reason, and because I think Manziel, they're going to put some things in the playbook that might catch Hamilton off guard. I could definitely see that, especially with Sherman and the connection he's had with Manziel in the past, going back to A&M. So give me the over in that game. We saw Montreal and Edmonton fly over the total, soar over the total with plenty of room to spare last week. You got another low number to deal with here at about 49 and a half. Over the total is the way I'm going to go. I'm staying far away from a side. I'm not laying this much points with a struggling Hamilton team on the road, but there's no way I'm taking Montreal on Manziel's first start, who's still got to show me what he can do first before I do that. Andrew, Hamilton, Montreal, the game everybody's talking about this week in the CFL. What's your thoughts?
Boy, oh boy, Ian, that is a lot to react to. That was probably the most passionate I've ever seen you about any kind of sports rant for the longest that I've known you. I mean, I could really hear the sincerity and the passion in your voice. And, the fact is, I'll give you my quick take on that, where as far as that goes, you can be a fan of a player, right? You can like the way a player plays. You can like the way, that they act. You can like the way that they seem. You can look up to them. You can think they're a great player. But the fact is, you see this a lot. Like, I know a lot of people around here in Halifax, Ian, when LeBron James left Cleveland the first time, they became Miami Heat fans. Then they're Cleveland fans again, right? I'm a Montreal fan in hockey. I'm stuck with it. It's like you said, I'm an Edmonton Eskimos fan. Not many people really know that, but in the CFL, I'm stuck with it. It's your team, right? Like they have to be loyal to the actual city. Like, those people that you're talking about, Ian, that's not fair. It's not how sports work. I mean, they can hope that Johnny Manziel plays like, a decent game, doesn't embarrass himself, but there's no way they can be supporting him and not your hometown. So I do agree with your take on that. As far as Manziel goes, Ian, yeah, I got to get my quick thoughts on the trade and everything like that. I really do think that Hamilton got quite a bit back for it. But I think that at the same time, it would have been nice for them to keep him. I mean, Masoli's been struggling a little bit, but not only that, but if he gets injured or something happens with them, they're kind of screwed as far as that goes. But the way I see it, even though this is great, this is what Manziel needs. He needs the start. He needs the ball in his hands. He needs his reps, Ian. I just don't think it's a good idea for it. I think this kind of brings him down. He goes to a party city again. He goes to a team that's struggling. He goes to a team that has a terrible defense. They're not going to win anytime soon. He still has his 2-year contract, obviously. If anything, Ian, I know it's only early. He hasn't even had a start yet. What this tells me is that this is just kind of, he's going to be just a good CFL quarterback. I just can't see him kind of elevating himself back up to the NFL with this Alouettes team. I mean, can you? I mean, they've been a disgrace to us for the past several years. I think he'll just turn into hopefully being the next Anthony Calvillo on that team, and be his own style. Johnny Manziel does fit the CFL Canadian football style really well. He's still getting to know it. But I agree with you. Heading into that game, Ian, everyone seemed to be hopping on the points for Montreal. All the people that don't know anything about the Canadian Football League, decided to take the points, take the touchdown with the Alouettes because Johnny Football, of course, is starting. But I think, like you said, we haven't really seen the best from Hamilton the past couple of weeks. We haven't seen Jeremiah Masoli play his best. And you know what? He's going to have to come and play his best in this game. Everybody knows. I mean, there couldn't be a better storyline, Ian. Let's face it. It could not be a better storyline for the CFL, for it to advertise for Americans. Masoli, everyone knows now he's playing the quarterback that was back behind him, that's on a new team now, a struggling team. Realistically, all the pressure here is on Hamilton. And like you mentioned, has to be the week that Masoli really comes together, gets his act together, starts throwing like he was several weeks ago. I mean, he was top 3 passing in the league, and he's still up there really high. So, I mean, he has to get that back together. And I think with Montreal's defense being as weak as it is, with Johnny Football going back, getting his first start, he will look to make some deep bombs, I think, and deep plays. Both teams look pretty healthy at the wide receiver position. I think that this game will go over the total. I mean, everyone's hopping on Montreal on the points. But realistically, if you think that Montreal is going to be able to put some points up, just take the over, 49.5.
And the reason why I took the over last week is because I asked myself, I know the skill position is a little weak. The offensive line's not great, but is Vernon Adams Jr. an upgrade from Drew Willie or Jeff Matthews? My answer was hell yes. That's why I liked the over last week. Is Johnny Manziel an upgrade, even in his very first CFL start, from Drew Willie and Jeff Matthews? Hell yes, he is. Just because of his athleticism, his ingenuity, his ability to make plays out of nothing. Yes, he is better. So for that reason, you've got value with Montreal overs right now because their quarterback play, Adams and Manziel, to me, going to be a lot better than it was with Drew. That's how bad Drew Willie and Jeff Matthews were. I mean, that you're actually going to get probably Manziel in his first start being better than those two guys.
Not a big Drew Willie fan at all, Ian. Not a big fan at all.
Not good.
I mean, he's too weak. He's not mobile, and his arm just isn't there anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And even Adams showed it. He had some rough moments too last week, Adams, but he still was a lot more competent moving the ball, putting points and getting first downs than the other two quarterbacks were. All right, BC Calgary to wrap up our show week 8 and week 8, our breakdown of it. We've got Calgary -11, -11.5. The Calgary tax at home, especially in full force, and the total 51, 52, 51.5. It's really a wide-ranging total here because you got 51 in some spots, 51.5 in others, and a 152 still out there at the Greek right now. So make sure you shop around if you're betting this game over or under. I've got a pretty good opinion here on the total in this game, which is actually going to be my best bet for week 8. You look at last week, 34-22. It's the first game of Calgary's that went over the total this season. People are going to say, okay, maybe now Calgary's going to go on an overrun. Well, you look at that game last week and you see 56 points on the board, and then you look at the yardage, and there is a combined less than 500 total yards between the two teams combined. Saskatchewan had 247 total yards. Calgary had 242 total yards. That does not correlate with 34-22. There was a lot of crazy things, lots of turnovers, special teams touchdown, defensive touchdown. They all contributed to that final score being much higher than it really should have been. That, based on the yardage we saw from both of those teams, that should have been a 20-17, 24, 14 kind of game. It really should have been. There shouldn't have been that many points. It should have been low 40s, not 56 in terms of total points scored. And it should have cashed an under, even though it didn't. So now you're getting a little bump in the total. That Calgary total last week was in the high 40s. It's 51.5, 52 here right now. I think there's value to the under because that was just a lot of crazy stuff that happened. Special team scores, defensive scores that contributed to an inflated final score. Calgary still got an elite defense. They proved it last week. 247 total yards for the game. And the CFL to hold a team to 247 total yards, that's impressive. Tells you how good Calgary's defense has been. Travis Lulay, I know they're coming off a bye week here, but we're going to trust Lulay and this Lions offense on the road to move the ball up and down here against Calgary's defense, which at home has been stifling and overall has been stifling this season. We're still looking at a team that, really you could say last week was the first time they gave up more than 14 points, but, some of those points were not offensive points that Saskatchewan got. So that's something important to keep in mind. I think we've got some value to look under the total here. BC's actually been a little feisty for Calgary. It's a good spot for them, good situation off the bye. And I think it's inflated toward Calgary here, but I got to think long and hard about if I actually take BC here with the way Calgary's been going. I like the under a lot more than either side here in this game. Let's get to Andrew's thoughts, BC Calgary.
Yeah, as far as straight up goes, I mean, this will be another week where Calgary remains undefeated. I mean, they've looked talented, Ian. They've looked talented. I mean, like you mentioned already, we've already talked about it a little bit in that Calgary game. A lot of weird touchdowns, a lot of interceptions, a lot of like punt return type stuff that adds to the total, that makes the game a little bit different than a typical game. And I think that this Calgary team will continue to display that excellent defense, especially against a team like BC. I mean, for me, I'm more concerned about their offense than I am their defense. I mean, realistically, their defense is getting progressively better each game. I think coming off the bye, it'll be all right. So adding to that as well, I mean, they're a team that knows they're not going to be able to put up massive amount of points. They've done that. They have Lulay now at quarterback. Jennings is completely out of that position. And I think that coming into this game, the under was definitely the play. But I really do think that BC might be able to cover these points, Ian. Honestly, I think this might be one of those weeks where Calgary once again squeaks out a win, stays undefeated. But I think, 11.5, 12 points is quite a few points against this team. And I think this is one of those teams, because Calgary right now, Ian, where, they're, first of all, they're not scoring as much as I really expect them to against certain teams like Montreal, Toronto even. And I think that, in the second half, they kind of pack it in and focus on their defense. So this really could be, an easy Calgary win by about 7 points, 8 points, 9 points, and we're still covering a spread here. So, I think that look to the under as well. I'm really on that play as well. That was kind of one of my favorite plays actually coming into this show as well. But I do think that BC does have a chance to cover the points.
Yeah, I think it's a great spot for BC. I mean, it's off a bye. They had that tough loss against Ottawa before their bye. Remember, they led most of that football game, and Ottawa clipped them late with a touchdown in the final minute or so of that game to really snatch a victory away from the BC Lions in that game. But there has clearly been, in 2 weeks with Travis Lulay at quarterback, there's been a step up in intensity, focus, camaraderie. The offensive rhythm has been a lot better. And let's be honest, Travis Lulay has just made better throws and better decisions with the football than Jonathan Jennings did before him. That's the bottom line. Yeah. I mean, they had a chance to beat Ottawa. They rallied back. I think Lulay was rusty that first half. Then he put it together against Winnipeg when they came back from 17 down to win that game. So really, when you look at it, for the last 6 quarters of football, the 4 against Ottawa, and then the last 2 against Winnipeg, Travis Lulay on the offense did pretty decent. And it's not going to be easy. You're playing now the best defense for sure on the road, but you're at least off a bye. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, if I'm playing this game from a side perspective, to me it's inflated with Calgary, just like it was inflated against Montreal, their last home game. They were laying 20. I know Montreal's horrible, but that was not. I couldn't believe it was that high, minus 20. And of course, they win that game 25-8. Win by 17, but not enough to cash a ticket if you were on Calgary in that game. And now that's a couple weeks in a row since Mitchell got hurt, Andrew, in that Ottawa game. He played against Montreal. Offense just a little off kilter. Last week against Saskatchewan, again, offense just a little off kilter. 242 total yards is all Calgary got last week. So
Ian,
to me,
one of these weeks, these big spreads are gonna, they're gonna fail again. I mean, continuously we're going to realize that obviously Calgary's this dominant team, but they're taking the foot off the gas pedal. And we have to watch that trend. I mean, it's plain and simple to me looking at this. They're not one of those teams that's really powering the points. I mean, against Montreal, like you said, going into that, could they probably win by more than 20 points? Yes, I do think so, Ian. But looking at the second half, I mean, again, Calgary has this trend. I mean, I've been liking them on the first half a lot. First of all, you get, half the points and they play almost stronger. They're more focused on the defensive game. I think they're taking their foot off the gas pedal in the second half of these games, Ian. Their defense isn't, but their offense is. And Bo Levi Mitchell is just kind of just going through the motions, or they're trying to get their backup quarterback some time. So I think that, with a massive spread like this, we're not really as much, putting a lot of respect on BC, but it's more so just thinking that, Calgary's not going to run this score up.
Yeah, and Jonathan Manson in the chat talking about the fast starts for Calgary and just slow plodding, just cruise into the finish line at the end. That's been Calgary when they play these inferior teams. Although let's be honest, I mean, Calgary was laying 20 against Montreal, and now they're still laying double digits here again. I know BC's not an elite team right now in this league, but it's not like they're complete chopped liver. And since Travis Lulay's been back, there's been very good, competitive efforts from this BC team. Beat Winnipeg, came back in that game to win, and maybe should have beat Ottawa on the road, just a couple of weeks ago before their bye week. So it does seem like a few too many points. I like the under more, but definitely going to look hard at BC as well. Let's go to best bets now to wrap up the show and the Week 8 edition of the CFL 3-Down Breakdown. Thank you, by the way, to everyone for bearing with me through that Hamilton rant about my fan base and my city there for a bit. I had to get it off my chest. It's been bothering me now this last several hours since Manziel was named the starter. I've had to hear some of that nonsense, but thank you for putting up with it. Best bet for me, we're going to go right back to the game we just talked about. Calgary, BC, going to go under 52. That's the best number out there right now at the Greek. Look, that game should not have been 56 points last week. Calgary and Saskatchewan should have been 42. You had a defensive score, a punt return touchdown. I think we got a little bit of value toward the under. BC, off the bye too. And we saw Travis Lulay, when he didn't play the week before, when he made his first start, he was rusty that first half. So maybe first half under you look as well. But I'm going to go full game under 52. Definitely a lean to BC as well. But stronger opinion for me in that game is under 52, BC Calgary. And that's what I'll use for my best bet on the CFL 3-Down Breakdown for Week 8. Andrew, let's get your best bet for Week 8. What do you got?
Yeah, excellent. I really like that play as well. You know what? Might as well get the people what the people want. And I really do think that someone is going to be looking to see what the bet is in this Montreal game when Johnny Football starts. And it's not going to be Johnny Football's team on the points. It's not going to be laying the home chalk. Or sorry, the road chalk. I'm going to go with the over 49.5. This should be an exciting game for a team that struggles as much as the Montreal Alouettes do. Jeremiah Masoli versus Johnny Manziel. Should be lots of points. Go over 49.5.
All right, Hamilton, Montreal over 49.5. Andrew's best bet for Week 8 action. And that's going to wrap up our show. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Great interaction in the chat. Seems like the chat room during these CFL 3-Down Breakdown shows is growing every single week. We really do appreciate that. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We will be back again, as always, next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, with our Week 9 edition of the CFL 3-Down Breakdown. For Andrew McGinnis, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Enjoy CFL Week 8 action. Good luck with all your wagers, and we'll see you again next Tuesday.